Hi, Cancer Sun and Rising. Welcome to your August 2020 Astro Update. It's Rena here, and August is a time when the Sun is it starts the month in the second house, which is the money that you earn and your possessions, and your self esteem too, on the psychological level. So it's actually a very good time for you because you may find that money is something that comes easier for you, especially when Venus goes into this sector, which will be happening close to the middle of the month. So, on the 4th of the month of August, Mercury goes into Virgo. Now, Mercury has been in that second house, and that has given you mental energy, or you have been devoting mental energy to your finances. This happens every year, but sometimes we are crunching numbers. We're kind of thinking about things. And depending on other factors, there could be worry, there could be, wow, look at how much I'm getting. And it's really just about organizing it. Maybe you're writing things down, maybe you're coming up with ideas to make more money, different income streams. And on the 4th, when Mercury goes into Virgo, it's going into the house that it rules, which is the third house. But Mercury rules the sign of Gemini. And so, because it is going into Virgo, the other sign that it rules, it is for in your particular chart, that is the third house. And but it's important to note that Mercury does rule this house under the sign of Gemini, because that means that it's in its own domain, and that means it functions to a higher degree, and it kind of I was going to say exacerbates things, but that sounds negative. It enhances the effects of the mental energy, the communication, the desire for communication that this third house represents. But the third house under Gemini has to do with acquiring skills. So with Mercury here, you may be studying something, but this is not academic. This is not college material. This is more of practical, mundane knowledge. So this can be trainings that you're getting. It's very interesting. I heard another astrologer talking about the ninth house and talking about trainings, and I was a little bit confused, but these kinds of things happen a lot when you are dealing with astrology and anything else. Let's face it, in life. Even if you were studying nutrition, there are different schools of thought and they contradict each other. And one person will tell you to do this, and one person will tell you to do that. So I like to, maybe because I have the moon in Virgo, I like to have everything in its own compartment. So I feel that the ninth house should be reserved for academia, and the third house, the opposite, since it's the opposite house, it's more of the mundane knowledge. So, in other words, learning how to become an electrician or a massage therapist or something like that, where you don't necessarily have to go to college for 4 years. You can get your degree a lot quicker, and you can specialize in these skills that you have attained. This can also be about teaching things. It's teaching and learning. So it's also elementary school years, and it encompasses high school as well. So if you are a Cancer person, and I always think of Cancer as a teaching sign, who is a teacher, this is the time for a lot of, at least in the United States, a lot of the schools begin in August these days, it seems. I could have sworn when I was a kid in the 70s that we started after Labor Day in September, but whatever. It's so long ago, I'm trying to remember. But yeah, so that's something that you could be tutoring, maybe. And maybe maybe with Mercury, you're creating your own little tutoring business or something. Um, so on the 11th of the month, we have two important transits. Venus is going into Leo, and this is important because Venus is the goddess of love and beauty, but also Mula. Wherever Venus travels in the chart, you could see money accompanying her transit into that house. And the other thing that's significant about this is that this is the house that Venus rules. It actually rules the seventh house as well, but it rules the second house under the sign of Taurus. And in your chart, the second house is ruled by Leo. So this could be very uh, easy for you to manifest or attract money at this time because Venus is in its own house, and Venus is already rather languid, kind of sitting back and letting things come to her, as opposed to Mars, the other of the divine lovers, the divine masculine, which is more um, aggressive about obtaining money. Also, on the same day, there's a full moon, and you're ruled by the moon, so that's important in and of itself. And it's at 19 degrees of Aquarius. So for you, this is going to be the opposite house, which is the eighth house. Now, the eighth house is significant as a money house as well because it's shared resources. So full moon here could bring some awareness of other people's money. Now, this is how this can shake out for some of you. If you have somebody in your life who has passed away and you're like in that process of determining the will and all of that, this could be the time when this is getting the ball rolling, or just discovery period where you're finding out exactly what's what. Sometimes there is some secret about money when there's a full moon in the eighth house. Let's say your spouse, you intercept a bill in the mail or a bank statement in the mail, and find out that your spouse is in big trouble financially. And you may be like appalled by that because Cancer people tend to be very, I would say, fiscally conservative and also very security minded. So there can be sometimes fears associated with finances for Cancers because you really do crave that security, and anything that threatens that can put you in a tizzy. And this may be kind of the icing on the cake if you're having marital difficulties, okay? And by the way, marriage to me is any committed partnership that involves maybe a domestic arrangement in particular. But I think a lot of Cancers who have a choice choose to actually get legally married. Again, maybe sometimes it's for financial reasons. It's really funny because I just celebrated 40 years with my partner, and which is insane in and of itself. Because it seems like it went by so quickly. I'm like, no, how can I be old enough to celebrate 40 years or something? But the thing is, we're not married. We don't have kids though either, so that may play into things. And I remember years ago, marriage had a real like benefit in terms of like when people were filing their taxes. And at some point, they totally took those away. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I wonder how many people got married simply for some kind of tax relief, and then they're like stuck being married to someone. And I'm half joking, but I'm bringing that up because I think that Cancer people really think about those kinds of things. And if the other party, if you have somebody in your life as a significant other who is fiscally irresponsible, I think that is definitely going to rub the average uh, Cancer person the wrong way. Maybe if you have a lot of inner planets in Leo, maybe a moon in a fire sign like Aries, Sag, Leo, that's very free spending, Libra, maybe it's not going to be that big of a deal. But this may be a time when you find out exactly what's going on, which is a good thing because knowledge is power. You don't want to be in the dark about something if you're living with somebody who is, you know, um, burning a hole in the savings or whatever. Also, the eighth house is the house of transformation, alchemy, magic, death is the eighth house. But those prior words I used, that is what death is, really the ultimate transformation. And a full moon here can be that, that you're dealing with the death of someone close to you. Now, this doesn't mean that this is happening at this time. Like I said, because there could be some kind of a probate issue, it's just shining light on this area of life. And especially, again, with shared resources, that can involve wills, but also divorces. And for some Cancer people, either you have already gotten divorced because you've had a lot of heavy energy in the house of marriage, the seventh house, with Pluto and Capricorn in particular. I've mentioned before that I know a couple that was married for decades that got divorced during this transit of Pluto in the seventh, and probably Saturn was in Capricorn at that time as well. And it's still shocking to me because I never saw it coming, and it just seems like, such a long, I thought, it seems like a soulmate situation. So if you have been there yourself, as Pluto does its, I was going to say its victory lap, but I don't know if I call it that, its last 6 months or I'd say like 7 months in Capricorn before it goes into Aquarius in March of 2023. This is kind of like, at that critical 29th degree, it's like really, I would say, bearing down on this area of life and making you think about the viability of your union. And so with the full moon in the eighth house, this can kind of be maybe also the chapter closing of this particular situation, with especially as the money angle is playing out. On the 20th, Mars goes into Gemini. Now, this is very important. To the extent that I'm going to do a whole video on the Mars transits through each sign. But Mars is going to stay in Gemini until March of 2023, and then it's going to go into your sign. So it's going to take 7 months for it to go into your sign. So it's going to be in that 12th house, and it might feel very difficult in order to regulate your nervous system, in order to feel calm on a regular basis, it would be it would behoove you to really pay attention to any kind of antsiness and agitation, because the 12th house is not a house that really is compatible with Mars, because it's a house of contemplation, and it's like, I would say it's a house of sitting meditation, not not the natural place. Well, maybe that's wrong to say. I was going to say not the natural place of hatha yoga from the standpoint of physical activity. But that might not be correct on my part, because it's a spiritual house. So anything that you're doing that's spiritual is definitely supported here. But I would definitely say do hatha yoga. Or I don't like to give advice, but I'd say think about doing something like hatha yoga, qigong, if that's how you pronounce it, tai chi, things like that, because that can soothe you and yet also be a physical um, energy release. Because this is, like I said, Mars is very physical to me. And in the 12th house, which is very much about the spiritual dimension, the physical is kind of like a fish out of water here. And it's kind of a pun, play on words, because, or a pun, because the 12th house is ruled by Pisces, and Pisces is a sign of the fish. So I'm going to be doing videos on this Mars in Gemini and the retrograde in late October. But I just want to tell you, for Mars to enter Gemini in that 12th house, to see how you feel, if you do feel any different. Because if you don't feel different, then there's no problem. But if you feel like this sense of like jumping out of your skin or something like that, then look into things that soothe your nervous system. There's actually some videos on YouTube that have really popped up in the last year or two. And also hatha yoga and things like that. On the 22nd, the sun goes into Virgo. So the sun is in this house of communication. For those Cancer people, and there may be quite a few actually, because you may have inner planets in Gemini. Just like I said, you might have them in Leo, you might have them in Gemini, because these are the adjacent signs to Cancer. You may have talent as a writer. And I was speaking to my partner about this modern writer named Louise. He was correcting my pronounce Eldridge or Erdrich. Some of you know who I'm talking about. And I have not read, I think I read a short story by her once. I have a novel, I haven't read it, but I believe she's a Cancer. And she had this collection of books. I think she's from Minnesota, but it's like kind of Native American based. But I don't think that that's her ethnicity. I'm not quite sure, but she seems to be a great storyteller, and that is a Cancerian trait. So that's another thing too, because Mars being in Gemini, I feel like it is in the 12th house, but it is in Gemini. Gemini for everyone is about communicating. With Mars, there's a sense of urgency to communicate. And in the 12th house, where this is going to take place for you, this can be tapping into like the Akashic records, or, even if you're not doing it formally, this idea of some of you are a lot of you probably are very intuitive, And you may have like a very vivid dream state. The 12th house is that. And maybe Mars in the 12th will mean that you're more active in your dreaming. And if you keep a dream journal, that can also be used as fodder for, you know, writing projects, ideas. On the 25th, we have Mercury going into Libra. Now Libra is a cardinal sign like you. So this is going to fall in the fourth house of home and family. Um, Particularly in 2023, there are going to be eclipses occurring in this area, the fourth house, as well as the 10th house of career in the sign of Aries. So these two areas will be triggered, and I'm sure in 2024 as well for Cancer people. So this is the year before. When I say triggered, it might mean a big move. It might mean um, purchasing a house if you've never had one before, or downsizing if you're at that stage of life where you don't need what you used to need. Remember that you rule this house, the fourth house. So that also has to be factored into that eclipse triggering. That's coming up though in 2023. So, Mercury here, the reason I'm saying this is that you may be getting the ball rolling, so to speak, where Mercury can be research. And if you are just thinking about something, so you may be thinking about moving, thinking about a different type of house that you want or dwelling, um, researching, talking about it with others. I believe the fourth house is the mother, so you may be speaking to your mother more, contacting her. Fourth house can be your childhood memories. Maybe you are um, remembering something from your past, and that is on your mind. Your childhood may be on your mind, or you're talking about it with a therapist. I don't know, something. But it's almost nostalgic. On the 27th, we have a new moon at 4 degrees of Virgo, back in that third house of learning, teaching. So some new beginnings, like I said, if you are a teacher, certainly that could be a new school year. No doubt about it. I really think it should begin after Labor Day, though. I'm going to tell you. Um, until Labor Day, I don't feel like the summer is really over with. Of course, if you live in Australia, you're like, what the heck are you babbling about? It's not summer, it's the end of winter. Silly. But yeah, so something along the lines of maybe you're starting a website. The third house can be social media, and there may be a reason for that. That's one of the things too, is that definitely that may come into play because Uranus in Taurus is in your 11th house, and Uranus rules the 11th house, so it's enhancing that area that can be about technology and reaching the masses. Okay, that's what I have for you, Cancer. I hope that this resonates. Of course, this was a general reading, so some of these dates may not jibe, exactly when I said it was. Oh, well. Sometimes I've tried to do it where I'm more exact, and it's just a little bit tricky for me. But anyway, if you would like a private reading, I have the link below. I am promoting my double readings because they're a great value, and I like a good deal too, just like the average Cancer person. I have a double astrology reading called Deep Dive Reading, and It's at a reduced price because they're two full-length readings. Each one is at least an hour. One is natal chart analysis, the other are transits for the next 12 months. And the transits are looking at your exact chart. So it's going to be much more specific in terms of where some of these transits and some of the other ones um, fall in the next 12 months. And that's called Deep Dive. And then if you like the tarot, I did create one where it's a full length tarot reading and a chart analysis, or if you want, just the transits, you can get that as well. And that's called the whole enchilada. I have single, standalone readings too. So thank you for listening. I hope you have a great month, Cancer. Bye.